Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining Magnolia Peach Tea Podcast.
Thank you for joining.
Today we'll be talking about October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Our very own Jean does have an experience or a story to share with us.
I do.
So, in the year of 2013, is that
14.
correct? 2014. And we always start the podcast off, and I don't never have the date or the freaking number right. Okay. So in 2013, you turned the ripe age of 40.
I did.
Right. And so just like any normal person, you went in for your annual breast exam, mammogram, wellness exam.
Well, actually, I went in for my annual woman pap exam.
Okay.
They said I needed to go ahead and start getting my mammogram, which would include since this would be my first mammogram, I think they call it a base
screening.
Right.
Your screening mammogram.
So that's what was recommended.
And so what date did you get your diagnosis?
I was diagnosed on January the 9th.
Okay. And that was that the same day that grandmother passed away?
That was the day before she passed.
The day before she
passed. Basically the night of.
Mm-hmm. So you got those results. Were you doing monthly breast exams? What was the...
I was doing breast exams. I'm honestly not going to say I was doing them every month because my cycles were irregular. I never had like regular cycles. Mm-hmm. So, like when you go through that whole monthly thing, I never did it. I did it sporadically. Mm-hmm. But again, I didn't feel it. Mm-hmm. Remember my doctor, I had just had my annual. And when you have your annual, they also do the breast exams. Mm-hmm. And she didn't feel it either. Gotcha. So then when I had the mammogram, mm-hmm. that's when everything started to crumble.
Yeah. So you had your screening mammogram, and then they called you back to get some more imaging, get a closer look, is typically what they say.
Right. Apparently they had tried calling me. I guess I didn't recognize the number and I didn't answer. So mm-hmm. I got a letter in the mail mm-hmm. telling me that the results were, I think they call it inconclusive mm-hmm. or something like that. And they wanted me to come back in and do another one. Mm-hmm. So I, immediately called, like, what's going on? And so they said, they just wanted me to do another one. So I went back in and I did another one. But that one was a little bit different than the first one mm-hmm. because they didn't let me leave. Yeah. They put me in a room and told me to wait for a minute. And mm-hmm. then after what seemed like forever, mm-hmm. they came back and said that they needed to do an ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that, mm-hmm. again, this is new because I never had a mammogram before. So I was like, okay. So they did the ultrasound and that's when they said that they saw something that was abnormal mm-hmm. and that I needed to have a biopsy. So
then how far after that did you have the biopsy?
Less than a week. It was almost
quick turnaround.
Yeah, I wanted to, my anxiety was I need to know. Mm-hmm. So I had the biopsy done and the results came back on January 9th.
January 9th. Okay. Yeah.
So from December, which is when I turned 40, to January 9th, I did the 2 mammograms, the ultrasound, and the biopsy.
Okay. So for your biopsy results, did they have you to come back in? Did she call or what was up?
Yes. I had to go in to this doctor that I didn't know, had never heard of before. So mm-hmm. I made an appointment. They wanted me to get in as soon as possible. So it was actually the next day. So went in and saw that this was a surgeon. And I was like, mm-hmm. okay. And so, sat on the table and, he comes in, introduces himself and basically told me bad news that the biopsy came back positive mm-hmm. for cancer and that I needed to have a lumpectomy mm-hmm. done to remove the cancer.
Gotcha. So the plan was, okay, so they called you in. They said, okay, hey, you have this area mm-hmm. that has some cancerous tissue, is what they're thinking based upon the biopsy. Biopsy results showed that you had a cancer, or there were cancer cells there.
Right.
So then they wanted to go ahead and remove that tissue. Did they give you an option, or was that just, hey, you got to get this out?
No, it was, you got to get this out. So the lumpectomy was basically, it was already, the I guess course of action was already planned. It was just letting me know that I needed
This is what we're going to do.
Right. And then scheduling the surgery. And of course, I wanted to get it done as soon as possible.
Immediately, what was your first feeling? Did your heart drop, or what?
Yes, my heart did drop. Definitely a lot of crying in there. He was great, because he allowed me the time to kind of get things out and get myself together, because he knew that if I was hysterical, then I was not listening to what he needed to tell me, or needed to let me know about the plan. And so, I remember crying a lot, yelling, screaming in that office a lot. But then, after that, he calmed me down, told me, this is what we need to do. We can schedule it, for when you're ready. And I was like, let's get it scheduled for as soon as possible. And then he told me that after he did the lumpectomy, I would meet with the oncologist, who would be in charge of the treatment plan going forward. So we scheduled the surgery, which was right before, I want to say it was maybe like a couple of days. It was an outpatient surgery. So we went in, I had the surgery done. They seemed to be very confident that they got everything out, but they needed to wait for the radiology,
the pathology.
And if the pathology report didn't show that all the margins were clear, then they would have to go back in. Unfortunately, the margins were not clear, so I had to have a second surgery for them to remove a little bit more tissue. That was when the first surgery, they also noted that it had metastasized. So it was also infecting my lymph nodes. So I had the lumpectomy done, as well as my lymph nodes removed under my left arm.
Gotcha. So you ended up having to meet with oncology.
Yes. Oncologist was very educating, which was what I liked about him. He was very educating. He told us, gave me stats, gave me, the treatment plan, which was, we're going to have to do 16 rounds of chemo. 4 of those rounds are going to be harsh. And then you're going to have to do 6 weeks of radiation. Okay. So in my head, I'm like, I got it. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. So then I started mentally preparing, I guess, to get it done. And in my mental preparedness, because I was thinking like, you see all these commercials about cancer, or people going through cancer, or just even these stories about people who go through cancer, and you think about, oh my God, I'm going to lose so much weight because I'm going to be all sick and I'm going to be throwing up. And it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my hair, because for me, my hair was my thing. I was a, what you call it? Creamy crack queen. Every 5 to 6 weeks, I'm doing the creamy crack, because I need this bone straight hair, right? And my bobs and everything. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my hair. So I remember, I think I had a conversation with you. I was like, I don't want to just lose all my hair, because I had shoulder length, maybe a little bit longer hair. And I was like, I don't know. I think I want to cut my hair. And I remember you took me to, I think it was Great Clips or something like that.
Yeah.
And we had a very short pixie cut done, which I absolutely hated. But I was like, okay, this is it. I could do it. And then I think before I went back to work, we bought a wig, because I was like, I didn't want people to be like, what happened to you? So I wore the wig, which was just like my old hair, so like nobody would notice.
Well, let's back up a minute. You said you didn't want people to know at work. I remember the day that that you were diagnosed, the day you and your then husband came back home, and he called me and he's like, Kim, please come. You have to come. You have to come now. I remember I was working nights. Mm-hmm. I was on my way to work or getting up to go to work. And he's like, you have to come. She's not doing good. I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm on my way. Mm-hmm. On my way. Came there. And I remember I told you, I said, look here, go on and cry. Go ahead and get it on out right now. Here's your box of Kleenex. Get it out because we got work to do.
Yeah.
We got work to do.
And that's when I had to put my big girl panties on and like, okay, we got to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
But even going back, I remember having to call mama.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to tell her, and I was like, I wanted to make sure that she wasn't by herself. Mm-hmm. But Dad wasn't there because he was taking care of grandmother at the time. So he wasn't there. He was at grandmother. And I was like, well, I'll just wait till, just let me know when he get back and stuff. And she's like, no.
Yeah,
no.
She already knew.
Yeah, she already had that feeling. She said, no, you're going to tell me right now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I'm going to just wait till Dad to come. She's like, no, you're going to tell me right now. So just tell me what the doctor said right now. So I told her, we cried about it. And then I said, I hung up with her. And then I remember Dad called me back when he got home. Mm-hmm. And, he asked me how I was doing. And I said, I'm okay. I'm gonna do it. But I think by that time you were already here or there, and we had already kind of like had that pep talk. We was like, okay, we're gonna just get it done. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did, and I appreciate that because honestly, it kind of, I guess you expect the worst because. You put it in your mind, all of this stuff that you've seen, heard.
You think of the bad stuff,
right?
Because, you see the success stories, right? But you hear more about the struggles and the heartache that people go through rather than, the good times.
Right.
So it's understandable that your mind automatically goes left.
Yes.
To the worst.
Yes. Wow. And it did. But again, my oncologist was great. He was very, knowledgeable, and he educated me on the process. He gave me, a lot of statistics, and he recommended that I get the BRCA testing to see if my cancer was genetically, whatever, came about genetically, because nobody in the family that we knew of had ever experienced breast cancer. So I did have the BRCA test done, and that came back negative. So it was not genetic. Yeah. So, I guess maybe for like a couple of hours, I was like, well, if it's not genetic,
why me?
Why me? Right. And then, like everybody else says, that realization, like, why not you? Why, why not you?
I think that question always comes up.
Exactly.
Why me?
Right.
But I believe, of course, God puts you through these things to prepare you for the unknown, for other things that may be thrown your way to help strengthen you.
Exactly. And I can see that. Yeah. Who knew? Because it definitely did in more ways than one. So with the oncologist, we had the treatment plan. We're going to do 16 rounds of chemo, 4 of which were like what they call, AKA the monster. And then the other 12 were the still mild chemotherapy. He was the one who advised that it was stage 2. And because it had metastasized, it was, I want to say 2A or 2B, whatever it was. But that's the treatment plan was the chemo and then the radiation. Because I remember in the oncologist, I was like, so if it's stage 2 and this was my first inkling that there was anything wrong. Remember, just had my first mammogram. My doctor did a breast exam, didn't feel it.
Felt anything.
However, within the span of a couple of weeks, we're at stage 2 and it had already metastasized. So I'm like, let's just cut these puppies off.
Not the tatas.
Yes. He was like, no, let's not do that. We're going to follow this treatment plan that, whoever came up with, because he did tell us that there was a guideline for treatment plans based on the cancer level and all of this stuff. So he said, let's follow this. So I was like, okay, not a problem. When can we start?
Yeah. Because I think sometimes in women who have the mastectomy, the healing time and recovery time, is longer right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, you're moving a whole lot more tissue. Then you have to form a flap. It's a lot going, and then should you want to have reconstructive surgery, it's a long path. So, yeah,
in my head, all I was thinking about, I don't want this to happen again. So if I eliminate the issue area, then that would be fine. Because I wasn't even thinking about reconstruction. I was just like, I'll just walk around flat chest. It wasn't like I was a double D anyway.
I don't need them.
So
I don't need
right, exactly. But he was adamant about, nope, we're not gonna do that. And even the surgeon who did the lumpectomy, he was like, I tried to kind of keep it as symmetrical as possible, but still remove the lump. So you know how people talking about, their breasts are like twins. Mine not twins. They're not even sisters. No. They're like cousins. They in the same family, but they don't look
nothing alike. Oh
my. So then we had to start chemo. That was the first step.